Good morning, Signature Real Estate Group. Chris Bishop here, your general manager. Have some really exciting news for you. We've heard many of you talking about the form systems changes that are happening from the Las Vegas Association of Realtors. Brandon and I have been strategizing in different ways to help you guys move through the market and deal with all of those changes. And why we can't change the form systems that LVR rolls out, we are pleased to announce that we have contracted with SykSlope to bring you SykSlope forms. One of the nice things about this great service is you're allowed to do all of your business in one place. You're able to create your documents, type your documents out, send your documents out for signature, and the best part is when they come back, they're already in your file storage system. We believe this is one of the easiest file management systems that you could possibly use in the business, and based on the training you're going to get today from SykSlope, you'll see how easy the form system is to navigate. It's very user-friendly, it's very customer service driven, and so when you actually have a problem with the system, you're able to call in and get some help. But we think this will be a huge tool for your business, and the best part is it's just another added benefit here at Signature. So look forward to the meeting. Hope you guys enjoy it as much as I'm going to. We look forward to hearing your feedback. And again, this is optional. It's not something you have to use. It's just another tool that you have at your disposal, but hopefully it's way easier than some of the other systems that are out there. Guys, thank you so much for all the hard work that you do. We appreciate you. Make it a great week.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Hi, everyone. I'm going to turn my camera on real quick. I hope everyone's having a good morning. Like I was just introduced, my name is Megan. I'm on the customer success team here at SykSlope, and I will be walking you guys through SykSlope forms as well as a little bit of the SykSlope platform today. I'm actually going to keep my camera off, but I just wanted to turn it on and say hi to everyone. But I'm going to be looking all around, so I don't want that to be distracting for everyone. So I'll go ahead and stop that again, but just wanted to say hi. Can everyone hear me okay, hopefully? Let's see. Hopefully you can. Awesome. So I already introduced myself. You guys know who I am. I'll be walking you guys through the forms platform today, as well as a little bit of just normal SykSlope, which you may have already dabbled in, so you might already be familiar with that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to submit those through the Q&A today, and I'll be stopping periodically and seeing if any questions have come up. But speaking of questions, if you haven't used SykSlope before, or maybe you have, but you might not know, we do have a really awesome support team available to you here at SykSlope. They're all located in California, which is where our offices are, and they answer chats in 10 seconds and calls on the second ring, and the same will go for forms. So even though it's not the main SykSlope platform where we're talking about forms today, our support team is still there for you to assist with any questions that might come up. So ask me questions today, but when you have questions in the future, always reach out to support, and I'll show you guys how to do that. So what are we going to cover today? Well, this last step 3 right here, is kind of the traditional SykSlope that you might be used to, right? Creating property files, turning in your documents, and kind of that transaction management portion. But now, if you want, you can do everything in SykSlope from start to finish. So you can access your forms, those Las Vegas forms, right there in SykSlope, as well as the signature real estate forms. Fill them out right in SykSlope, send them out through DigiSign, which is also a SykSlope product, and then turn them in by creating that property file that you might already be used to doing. So let's go ahead and just jump in. I am actually logged into a forms training account. So obviously when you guys log in, it'll look pretty much like this, but you might have some files created. Just as a heads up for those who have never used SykSlope before, your signature real estate logo is your home button. So if you're ever on this page and you want to get back home, just click on your logo. And then another heads up, if you have any questions, you can always click on this little person with the headset right here. This will connect you to support. So again, chats in 10 seconds, calls on the second ring. Also, everything that I'm going to show you guys today is going to be on this support page. So if you wanted to check out some smaller tutorials, we have a bunch of those on the support page. But let's get back to showing you what we're going to talk about. So As you can see here, we're not seeing a forms button on this homepage. That's actually going to be coming shortly, but right now we can access forms by clicking on apps, and then we'll see forms pop up for us. So right under this apps icon right here, we're going to see forms pop up for us. Later this week, you guys will have a forms button on the homepage as well. Just want to point that out. So let's go to forms. So I'll go to apps and then forms. All right, so this is what's going to happen the very first time you log into forms, but it's only going to ask you this question one time. So it's going to ask you what region you're in. So here we can go ahead and put our state. I can go ahead and put Nevada. And again, this question is only happening one time. So I entered that in and I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and hit next. Now I can add, I skipped past that page a little bit fast, but I can add Reno forms on that page if I want to, but if I just needed the Las Vegas forms, I can kind of bypass that. So after you've logged into forms or let it know which region you're serving, you're going to see this. It's going to ask you to create your first forms file. And so we're going to walk through that together, but I already want to pause here and see, are there any questions that have come up, questions about how I got to this forms bit? Again, I selected apps and then went to forms. All right, so let's set the scene here. Let's say I am a realtor working at Signature Real Estate and I have a new listing or I have a new seller that I'm working with. Maybe I just left a listing appointment, maybe I'm still at the listing appointment and the seller is going to work with me, which is great, but now I need to send out a listing agreement and kind of get that ball rolling, right? So previously I was going into maybe Zip Forms, maybe Transaction Desk and grabbing those forms. Now I can just do that all in SykSlope. So I'll go ahead and start by creating a file. And this is me creating a forms file. So I'll go ahead and click create file. Now, the very first time you use SykSlope forms, you are going to get this kind of guided tour that you can see popping up for us here. I'm going to say no thanks because I'm actually going to be your guided tour today, so we don't need two of them. So I'm just going to answer some pretty straightforward questions. Who's my client? Well, I mentioned that I'm working with the seller, right? What's their name? So I'll enter in their information here. Maybe it's Sally Seller. And I'll enter in Sally's email. I can see that I have this import MLS data button, but this is a new listing, so it definitely wouldn't be in the MLS yet. And for purposes of today's training, I'm just going to create a test file. So I'll say 1234 test listing way. And then I'll go ahead and put in your guys' zip code. So again, just answering some pretty straightforward questions. Last question here, how do I want to name my file? I'm going to stick to the address. So after I've answered all these questions, I'll click on this blue button that says create. And now I have a forms file in SykSlope. So the next thing that we're going to walk through is how to actually grab the forms that you might need, how to fill them out, and then how to send them. But are there questions, any questions on how I created this forms file? So again, in this case, I just clicked on create file. It's a listing, so I selected that I was working with the seller and just answered those questions. Let me know if there's any questions on that. Alrighty. As I'm going through here, if questions pop up for you, just put those in the Q&A, and also when I stop, I'll see those and get to those. Cool. So now that I have a file created, I need to actually get some forms in here and then fill those out and send them, right? So I'll go ahead and click on this add form button. You can see here, I also have an apply template feature. Now, I didn't discuss this in the very beginning, but SykSlope Forms does have the ability to create templates. So if you wanted to kind of pre-populate what you might need, some people call them like prepared packets or just like a packet template, same name, or sorry, same idea. This would just kind of populate those forms for you. I don't have a template in this case, so I'm just going to add the forms manually, but you can always create a template and then those forms will just populate for you every time. So you don't have to add them every time. Hope that didn't confuse anyone. So I'll go ahead and click on add forms. And this is where I'm going to actually see the Las Vegas forms. And at the end of this week, I will also see the signature real estate forms in here as well. So your brokerage forms are going to be in here, and the Las Vegas realtors forms are in here as well. These are the association forms. These aren't, a different copy or anything. These are the association forms. And then the signature forms will be in here as well. So for now, since I don't have a template, I can just kind of type in what I'm looking for. Again, maybe I'm looking for a listing agreement. So I can go ahead and type that in, and we'll say, actually, I'm going to say exclusive right to sell. Oops. Which is probably what it's called. There we go. So I'll go ahead and add that in here. And I can add whatever else I need in here. Maybe I'm sending out my seller's disclosure or an agency disclosure, or, maybe I don't think I would send a lead-based paint with this packet, but whatever you need here, I can just type it in. For example, lead, I'm seeing my lead-based paint there. And again, we have the seller's disclosure in here, whatever you might need. So again, just kind of typing in what I would need to grab and then clicking this add button right here. Once I'm done adding my forms, and I just kind of added some random forms in here other than the listing agreement. But once I'm done adding my forms, I'll go ahead and select this blue button that says next. So now I can see those forms right here for me. Any questions on how I added these forms? I also want to note that you can upload your own documents. So if you needed non-association or non-signature real estate documents, for example, maybe you have your own cover sheet or something like that, you can upload your own documents here as well if you want. All right, so I have my forms here. I'm actually just going to select these two, and I know it's a little bit funky. I'm grabbing a listing agreement and a lead-based paint, which you would never just send those two out. That's a little silly, but just for purposes of today's training, hopefully it doesn't throw anyone off. I'm just going to select these two to show you what it looks like to fill out a form and then to sign it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these, and I'll hit this blue button right here that says fill and send. So you might be noticing a pattern. You're kind of just following the blue buttons along the way here. Now, anything that I've entered in that initial question, so for example, who my seller was and the property, all of that information is going to populate here. Now, I can enter in anything else that I need, right? So we have the listing price, for example, $500,000. We'll make it, even down the middle there. Any additional terms, anything I want to enter here. I am going to put in some of this information. I'm not going to fill out this entire form, but I am going to enter some of this information because you will see later that this information will kind of flow to the rest of SykSlope as well. So again, just typing in anything I need to type in there. I can go ahead and put anything in. Anything that the seller would need to fill out, for example, had I selected the seller's disclosure, anything that your client needs to fill out isn't going to be fillable for you here. It'll be fillable to them when you send it to them once we get to that step. So are there any questions on filling out this form? Let me zoom out a little bit. Any questions on this sort of process of filling out the form, which I'm doing in this page here? So you can see, again, anywhere that it's fillable, I have the option here to fill it in. And this is all mapped by our forms team. So anything that you need to type in here, you can go ahead and do so right on this page. I know that some folks are watching on YouTube, so maybe they don't have the Q&A option, but let me know if you have any questions so far, or if this is making sense so far. All righty. So after I have my forms filled out, I obviously need to get them signed by my client. If my client is okay with electronic signature, which hopefully 99% of your clients are, then I can go ahead and just hit this blue button that says prepare signature. If my client is a little more old school and they want to sign it with a wet signature, you can always print it right here. We can see that print button right here. But I'm going to go ahead and send these to the client electronically. So I'll select this blue button right here that says prepare signature. Here I can see the envelope name and I can see who is signing. So remember, Sally Seller is the only person we're working with today, so I can see her here. So I'll go ahead and hit this blue button. Next. And now I'm taken to DigiSign. So as I mentioned before, everything is done right here in SykSlope. DigiSign is a SykSlope product. So the Forms tool I'm showing you is a part of SykSlope. DigiSign, which I'm showing you guys right now, is a part of SykSlope. So I have not left SykSlope, and I won't need to. So DigiSign, if you've used DigiSign before, this version of DigiSign is actually updated. DigiSign got a little bit of a facelift, and we can see here, good news is that any form that I've grabbed from SykSlope is already going to be mapped for me. So you shouldn't really have to put any initials or signatures or anything manually. You can see here the seller's initials. Anything here, anything that should be mapped is already mapped for me. So again, if I pull this form from within SykSlope, if it's a Las Vegas form or signature brokerage form, if that form originally comes from SykSlope, it will be mapped for me as I can see here. So those initials, any signatures, any dates, things like that, all of that will be mapped for me. Now, maybe I uploaded my own form, or maybe I want to make changes to this. You can always do that. So if you wanted to add a signature somewhere, you can just click signature, click where it goes. You can move it all around. You can resize it. You can even highlight this and hit Command C on your keyboard. So I'm hitting Command Copy on my keyboard and then Command V. So I can highlight and paste. So that's an update that DigiSign didn't have before. I can also highlight all these and delete them all at once. Another thing that DigiSign did not have before. Oops, let me refresh my page here. There we go. So again, I can highlight all these if I want to, and then just go ahead and delete them. Checkboxes, I can add checkboxes in groups. Again, DigiSign didn't have that before. So a lot of kind of updates here. If we had multiple clients, each client would have their own color. So like Sally Seller would be in green here, and then maybe, Sam Seller would be in blue. So it's color coded as well. If I needed to change the recipients, I can see recipients over here. These three dots, wherever you see three dots right here, that's going to let you edit DigiSign. So I'll click on that and I can always edit my recipients if I need to. Any questions on DigiSign? So I haven't sent these out yet. I'm just kind of previewing what it looks like, but are there any questions on DigiSign? Feel free to put those in the Q&A. All right, anyone want to see anything in particular? Let's see here. How do you put in an optional check mark? Good question. So if I had a checkbox, well, number one, if it's something like the seller's disclosure, that will already be mapped for you. So you won't have to place those checkboxes. That is all going to be mapped for you. And whatever is optional will be mapped as optional already. So just want to point that out. But if you wanted to place a checkbox and you wanted it to be manually, you just click on checkbox right here. And then where, let's say I had like groups, for example, where it says required, I can say select it at least, at most, or exactly. And then here, let's see. Why is it not giving it to me? Sorry, I've been having some issues because I've been logging into so many different accounts today. But over here, it's not showing up for me because I need to clear my cache and cookies. But over here, it'll have a optional box for you. So it'll be right here. I'm sorry that's not showing up for me, but it does exist. I just need to clear my cache and cookies because it's getting all messed up. But you do have the option for a checkbox. It doesn't even have to be a checkbox group, and it'll be marked as optional for you. Excuse me. So it'll be marked as optional for you. That'll be right here. And again, I'm sorry, that's not showing up for me, but you will see it when you log in. I just need to clear my cache and cookies because things are a little bit funky for me right now. Let's see, we have another question. Do we still prepare the forms for print as we currently do at the moment? I'm not sure what that is referring to. That sounds like a signature specific process. So I would say, I don't know if there's, let's see here. That's a question that I would ask the folks at Signature about because I'm not sure about that process. Sorry about that. Are there any other, oh, meaning can I prepare the form and simply print it out? Oh, yes, yes. So back on the page before this, so before I go to send this out for signatures, there was a print button. So if I don't want to send it electronically, I can print it. And then you can like save it as a PDF or just download it if you want to. Good questions. Any other questions? Cool. Just clearing these out. Will this replace the new Remind in MLS? So it's my understanding that Remind is, if this will replace any forms tool as well as signature tool, you would still have to publish to the MLS. So I do want to be clear about that. SykSlope will receive data from the MLS, but at this time, we're not going to push data into the MLS. So if you're using Remind to push data to the MLS, like make your listing live or something, you might still use it for that, but forms and everything you can do in SykSlope. Somebody asked, can I save templates for buyers and sellers to make forms easier to access? Absolutely, yes. So in the very beginning, I did not go over what that looked like, but there is an option to create as many templates as you want for both buyers and sellers. So you can kind of save those packets so you don't have to add the forms every single time. You can absolutely do that, yes. Good questions, guys. Are there any other questions? Any questions about forms or DigiSign? The next thing I'm going to do is send these out for signature. So I'm going to show you guys what it actually will look like when your client signs these. So feel free to enter any additional questions in that Q&A. Oh, we have some more. Let's see here. On initials, can you show us how to have clients only choose one of two? Yes, so we'll go over that in a moment. Somebody asked, when does this go live? Can we start using it now? Yes, you can start using it now. The signature real estate, so the brokerage forms, will be live at the end of this week. So if you need to use a signature form, it might not be beneficial for you right now, unfortunately, but at the end of this week, all forms will be in there. So right now, just the association forms are in there. At the end of this week, the brokerage forms, so those like 7 signature forms that you guys have, those will be in there as well. And then somebody asked about initials. So again, anything that comes from within SykSlope will be mapped for you. So if you grab the duty zone within SykSlope, it'll be mapped for you. So you shouldn't really have to do this manually. But if I wanted to place initials, for example, let's say I had 2 initials, this one is required. And then this one, I can see here that there's that optional field option. So I could just check that. And that would mean that that initial is optional to the person that asked that question. Great questions, guys. Are there any other questions? But again, you can start using this. You can start playing around with this as early as, today after this call, if you want to. Just be mindful that the signature real estate forms, so those brokerage forms, they're mapping the last few. So those will be in at the end of this week, so in a couple days. But if you just need Las Vegas forms, you can use that now. All right. Any other questions? Let's see, I'm not seeing any questions here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and send these out for signature, and I will show you guys what it looks like on the client end. So I'm going to send these, but I'm actually sending them to myself to show you guys what it looks like. So I'll hit this blue button right here that says send. I can change my email and my subject line. Obviously, I can see that here. I'm just going to go ahead and click send though, because I'm sending it to myself. So blue button, send for signatures. And now when I select I'm done, I'm taken right back to my forms file. You get some confetti after you send your first DigiSign envelope, so that's something to look forward to. Here I can see the file details. So this is all that information I entered in the very beginning when it was asking me who my seller is and what my address is and all of that. Over here, I have my forms, so I can see those forms that I've sent out. I can add more forms here if I want to. So as I am kind of working through this listing, I would just keep using this same forms file, and I could just add more forms. And then envelopes is going to show me any envelopes I've sent out via DigiSign, so via SykSlope. Here I can see that it was sent a minute ago. I have that little progress bar here. And then over here, if I needed to edit anything, resend, cancel signing, I can still do that considering or seeing as the client hasn't signed this yet. So you can still edit or cancel or do whatever you might need to do before your client signs this. So what does it look like when you send forms via SykSlope forms and DigiSign? Well, it'll look a little something like this. Your client will receive an email from you, and it'll say that you have requested their signature. And here they can just go ahead and get started. They don't need to create an account or anything like that. They can just access those documents right here from this email. So I'll click on Get Started, this blue button right here. And I'm selecting I agree to sign this electronically. I'm not agreeing to terms. I'm just agreeing to sign this electronically. And then I can either scroll through this packet or I can just click Start over here. And you'll see it's going to walk me through everywhere I need to initial and sign. Anything that's required, I'm going to have to initial or sign. And then anything that is optional, I can skip over if I want to. So I'll go ahead and click on this. Now, your client can choose a pre-populated signature if they want, or they can draw their own, whatever they prefer. I'm going to choose that pre-populated one because my mouse cursive is not the best. So I'll go ahead and choose this one and use this signature. And then it's just a matter of kind of clicking through. Again, the system is kind of walking me through everywhere I need to initial and sign. I don't need to initial and sign everything up front. I can definitely scroll through this and read it. Obviously, that's what I would do in real life. But in this scenario, I can just kind of click through anywhere I need to initial and or sign. I can see down here at the bottom, I have 8 out of 22 completed. So I'm just kind of clicking through these. So I'm going to click through these kind of fast because I do have 22. I didn't realize that I sent myself so many. So we're going to go through these. Sorry, guys. 18 out of 22. We're almost done. All right. So I have a question in the chat. So an optional field as a signer, I don't have any. I didn't send any optional fields to myself, so I don't have that option right now. But what it would look like is the same exact thing. The signature would pop up for me, but it would say optional, and I can hit next through it. So I don't need to sign it. I can just select next. So it'll pop up, and instead of saying required, it'll say optional. So it'll be highlighted and it'll specify that it's optional to the client. All right. So when your client's done signing this, they'll say finish signing. And they can do this on their phone, you know, if they have their email open on their phone or whatever, they can definitely do that. It'll work. On your client's end of things, they can download their documents. So they can either download a packet or individual PDFs. And then on your end of things, you will receive a copy of the fully signed documents to your email. So whatever email you log into SykSlope with, that's where the copy will go. You'll also see over here in the form side of things, you'll see that this is marked as completed, and you can download a copy here if you want to as well. But in terms of actually turning this in and creating a SykSlope file, you won't have to download anything, and I'll show you guys why in a moment here. But again, a copy will go to your email and a copy will be in your forms file as well. Questions on that signing experience or anything to do with forms? So the last kind of bit that I'm going to show you guys is how the regular SykSlope platform, so that transaction management piece that you guys are probably used to, I'll show you guys how that talks to forms, how the two talk to each other, like what connects it. So that's what we're going to go to next, which is the final part. But before I do that, are there any questions on form selection or file details or envelopes? If I go back to where it says files right here, I can see all of my forms files. In this case, I just have the one. And then for the person that asked about templates, there's a tab up here that says templates. So here's where I could create those templates if I want to. And it's as simple as saying create template and then selecting who it's for. And then you can just add your files. So it's pretty straightforward adding templates. You can see here, there's just that add button right here. And I'm not going to do that today. So again, templates are over here, and then your forms files are over here. And you'll see as you create more forms files, obviously this will be a longer list. But this is all forms. So any questions before I head back to kind of my normal SykSlope that I'm used to, that you guys might be used to? All right, any questions, put those in the Q&A. So I filled out my forms, I sent them out for signature, and now I'm ready to create a property file and let my admin and my brokers know, hey, I have a new listing and here's all the documentation. So I'm going to go back to kind of normal SykSlope as I know it. So again, I'll click on apps and I'll go to SykSlope right here. So again, we were just over here in apps and we used forms to kind of grab our forms and fill them out. And then we sent those using DigiSign. And then to get back to SykSlope, we just clicked apps again and came back here to SykSlope. Let's see, I have a question here. So some folks are asking about Remind. And to clarify, you can use this for all of your kind of forms and signature portion. As far as publishing to the MLS, if you're using Remind for that bit, you might still use it for that. If you're just publishing to the MLS by logging into the MLS, then yeah, you probably don't need to use Remind. Cool. I will let Monica and Brandon know. I'm not sure if they're on this call, but I'll let them know that there were some questions about that, and because I don't want to speak out of turn here. So I'll let them know that there were some questions about that. Alrighty, so last piece here, we're connecting our forms file with our actual SykSlope file. And I'm going to do that by, in this case, creating a listing. So remember, I'm working with the seller, so I'm going to create a listing. If I was working with the buyer, I'd create a transaction, but I'm not. So I'll create a listing over here. So I'll click on create listing. And now I'll enter my listing. And now historically, you guys were entering the address. So whenever you created a listing file or a transaction file, you were typing in that address and looking it up that way. But now, since we're using SykSlope Forms, I can actually just connect my forms file. And this is going to make everything easier for me because now this very question is what's going to connect my forms file and my SykSlope file together. So this is what's going to make the two talk to each other. This very first question right here. So again, I'm creating the listing. I'm saying, let me create it from that forms file. And I'll go ahead and hit next. Now I still have to enter in, what type of listing is this? Because this is going to pull up my checklist for me here. So I'll go ahead and click on that. But I can see here, how much is the property listed for? That information is already here for me because that was on my listing agreement. So any information that you entered in that forms file is going to flow here into SykSlope. So it's kind of saving you that double data entry. Now, I personally did not put the listing commission on my listing agreement, so I'm going to type this in for myself here. But had I put this information on my form, I wouldn't need to type it in manually. Listing date and expiration date, that was on my listing agreement as well. So again, I don't have to put anything here. It's popping up for me. So again, kind of saving me some time entering this data. If I had put the year built would pop up for me, but I didn't. So we'll just go ahead and enter that in myself. Source of this deal, you put whatever source you want here. And then lastly, who is selling the property. So I can see, again, all of that information that I already entered into SykSlope forms, that is now flowing into this file for me. So I can see here, Sally Seller. Go ahead and hit next. You can pre-open escrow if you want to. We don't need to do that in this scenario, so I just will say I don't want to. And that's pretty much it in terms of creating the file. Kind of take a quick glance over. Everything looked good. And then I'll hit create my listing. And now the last exciting thing that's going to happen is when I head over here to the documents tab, I can see those documents are waiting here for me. So if I'm using SykSlope forms and I'm using DigiSign, and then I go to create that file like I did just now and I connected forms, all of the documents that are fully signed are actually going to upload themselves to the Documents tab. So again, any fully signed, not partially signed, any fully signed, fully executed documents are going to upload themselves to the Documents tab here. Now, I do want to be very clear, it's still your guys' responsibility to get those onto the checklist to turn them in. But as far as actually getting the document itself in, SykSlope will take care of that for you if you're using SykSlope forms. To turn it into your admin, you do want to get it onto the checklist. So you would just kind of select the document, select assign, and then select where it goes. So for example, here, listing agreement would go to listing agreement and I'd hit assign. And if I go back to this checklist, I can see that that's in review. And now my admin can see that I've turned that in. So I'm just going to give them a note here. I'm going to say test file. All right, questions here. Cool. Yeah, that's my favorite bit. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to show you guys, but that's my favorite bit is that the documents are going to upload themselves for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So kind of benefits of using SykSlope forms is, number one, everything is in one place, right? We're already using SykSlope, so SykSlope forms and DigiSign, might as well use it. It's all here in one place. Number two, when you go to create a SykSlope file, any of that data that you've already entered, that is all going to populate for you. So it's eliminating double data entry. And then number three, the third main benefit, and in my opinion, the most exciting benefit of using SykSlope forms is that the documents will upload themselves for you once they're fully signed. All right, so somebody asked if you have a listing agreement and it needs to be also signed by a broker, is there a way to make sure the client signs first and then the document is sent to a broker? Great question. Yes, so when we get to the DigiSign portion, so I'm gonna go back into forms here. So I'm back in my forms file. I'll open this file up and let's click on this listing agreement. We'll go to fill and send. Let's say I've filled this out, so we're done. So we'll go to prepare signature. So when we get to this page right here, before we send it out, we can see here that it says recipients, right? These three dots are going to let me edit those recipients. So if I need to add anyone, I can go ahead and edit the recipient. And let's say in this case, it needs to go to broker Bob. And we'll say broker@bob.com. He needs to sign this, right? So we'll go ahead and save that. But what we would want to do in this scenario is add a signer group and drag broker Bob down to the second signer group. So this is saying Sally Seller will sign this first, And only after she is done signing will Broker Bob receive a copy to sign. Hope that answers your question. Hope that's what you're looking for. And then you would just go ahead and save that and then send it out when you're ready. Good question. Are there any other questions on creating forms files? Once you get to the actual property file bit, when it turns, when it uploads itself for you, are there any questions about that? Let's see here. Yes, a client gets a copy of the signed document as well. They can choose if they want individual, like, each individual document, or just a large packet. So I'm not sure if you saw when I went through signing it, at the very end there, it gives me a copy and it asks me how I would like to receive it. Any other questions? Feel free to put those in the Q&A if you guys have any questions. All right. Let me look out for those. So again, I will follow up with Brandon and Monica and just let them, they're the main folks that I work with, and just let them know that there were some questions about Remind. So I'll just let them know that, because I don't want to speak out of turn for those folks who had questions about that. But if there are any other questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A. If not, that was it for me. So thank you guys so much for letting me crash your meeting. I appreciate it. And maybe you'll see me at some other meetings. Maybe I'll be crashing some other meetings in the future.